believe in the gun. And our players don't use it most days. They use it every day.
In my 20 years as head coach, I've used the gun every single year. Well, my dream as a coach that everybody would grow up with the gun, because getting all those reps would make my job a lot easier.
Good afternoon, everyone. NABC Championship Webinar Series. This is Tom McDonald, director on the board of directors, two-year college coach rep. Also worked for Championship Productions for 20 years. And Troy Hilton from the NABC has been unbelievably helpful and with all of this. We're just talking, this is number 76, everybody, 76. Special thanks, Jim Haney, Reggie Mitten, Troy Hilton, like I mentioned, Eric Weberg, Rick Letty, The Gun for sponsoring all these, Sideline Interactive. They're going to give away one table, 8 feet, LED, free shipping, over $11,000 value. Craig Reed, KBA, for all the marker boards and magnetic boards, clipboards that he's sent out to coaches all over the country. Mike Bray, the past president of NABC, for everything he's done, encouraging and helping us, making these things happen. And he's also one of the speakers. Jamie Dixon is the current president, and he spoke too, and his support's been fantastic. Unbelievable, the board of directors, all the stuff they've done on the side of social media and speaking, time and effort. Championship Productions, Bill Bergen, Nate Landis, Daryl Bennett. And then now it's my honor, and my honor it is to introduce Dwane Casey, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown of his bio. First of all, he was a heck of a player, played at Kentucky, and then after that, he got into coaching at Kentucky, then Western Kentucky, and Kentucky again. And then he went overseas for a little while, but he really got into the NBA. And a really good friend of mine, Leonard Hamilton, a guy I unbelievably respect, says nothing but great things about Dwane Casey. 1994 to 2005, the Seattle Supersonics. 2005 to 7, the Minnesota Timberwolves. 2008 to 11, an assistant with the Dallas Mavericks. Then he became the head coach of the Toronto Raptors from 2011 to 18. And then now he's the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. As a player, he's NCAA champion in 1978, NIT champion in 76. As an assistant coach, NBA champion in 2011. As a coach, NBA Coach of the Year in 2018, NBA All-Star Game Coach in 2018, NBA Coach of the Year in 18, NBCA Coach of the Year. Coach, unbelievable. I tell you, it's 18 years as an NBA head coach. I think NBA Coach of the Year. But I just want to say thanks for being with us.
Tom, I really appreciate it. When you go through all that does is make me feel old.
Well, like I told you when we were just sitting here, you look like you could be a player, like you should be on the team.
I tell you what, again, you go through all that, and a lot of listeners out there on the clinic. The number one thing we forget, there's a lot of people that help you along the way throughout that whole issue. I can think of the days with Coach Pete Newell. We spent summers over in Japan together. We coached the national team in Japan. We'd ride through the country, Japan, and he would stay up. And at that time, I think Coach Newell was probably late 70s, early 80s, and could stay up and talk basketball all night. And just all those memories come back when you go through those years of everything, Tom. And then also, too, a lot of good players. And I want to say this before we get started, is to say congratulations to one of the best coaches I've worked with in my coaching career was Eddie Sutton. And again, he made the Hall of Fame this year. I was so happy. I'm going to be there if they have the induction for the Hall of Fame. I got two people. Got Coach Kevin Garnett in Minnesota, and also work with Coach Sutton at Kentucky. One of the best X and O minds ever to coach the game of basketball.
All right, you just hit the first question. I'm gonna let you keep going. Okay. It's this: the education. Most of the coaches that are on these calls are high school and coaches and teachers. Can you just keep going on your journey? The people have been with you and helped you and put you in the place you are. And I'm going to just let you go because I find it interesting, man.
It's amazing because there's so many people, and I don't want to name drop, but I've been blessed, Tom, to come through basketball and meet some of the who's who and work with some of the who's who that I learned from. And I stole a little bit from this guy, a little bit from that guy, a little bit, Coach Adolph Rupp, who was an advisor at the University of Kentucky when I played there. I used to go into his office and say hello to him and but he never wanted to talk about basketball. All he wanted to talk about was his prize cattle. He showed cows at that time, and that's all he wanted to talk about. On his wall, he had no basketball awards. He had a few, but mostly it was his prize heifers that he had shown at shows and stuff. But the guy that really got me in coaching was Coach Joe B. Hall. He and Leonard Hamilton at the University of Kentucky. I had just got through playing at Kentucky, and we had won the national championship a couple of years before then. So I go into Coach Hall, and he says, "Dwane, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Coach, I have no clue. I've graduated with my business degree, but I have no clue." He said, "Well, why don't you stay here and be grad assistant and work with the rookies that's coming in this year?" And that was Sam Bowie, Melvin Turpin, Dirk Minningfield, Derek Horde. My whole job as a grad assistant was to take those guys and teach them 6-8-10, which was a series of offensive plays that Coach Rupp started in the 1940s when he first came to Kentucky. So that my job was to put that offense in with those freshmen. At that time, it was before freshmen, that was right as soon as they could start playing at the time. So I took them over to the old alumni gym there at the University of Kentucky and took them through the offense. So I got my teeth cut with Coach Hall and Coach Hamilton there as a grad assistant for 2 years. And then after that, I went to Western Kentucky, which was another hotbed of basketball. Worked with a guy, Clem Haskins, at Western Kentucky, and I probably learned more about the NBA game from him because he had just got through playing and working with Coach Gene Cady. But I learned more about people, hone my people skills with players, how to interact with players, teach players, work with them, recruit, the whole 9 yards with him. And then that's when I got the call from Cliff Hagan to come back to the University of Kentucky, and Coach Sutton had just gotten the job there. Coach Hamilton had just taken the job at Oklahoma State. And so I went back to Kentucky, worked with Coach Sutton, one of the best defensive mind, offensive mind, bar none. And he had this big baritone voice that commanded respect. And he let James Dickey and I run practice. We learned how to organize a practice, implement a practice from scratch. And he gave us that latitude and the leeway to do that. Now, he would jump in and change the practice schedule or whatever it was, but he allowed James and I to run practice, teach our whatever we felt like we needed to teach that day.
So when you went from the MBA or college to the NBA, what was the biggest learning curve? What things were the hardest to?
Well, one time I always felt like I had to go make a phone call. You had to, in the NBA, it's all about basketball. I had went to Japan. That's where I came in contact with Coach Newell over there. He had worked with the Japan national team and their teams over there for years. And he and I coached the national team over there and worked with them on a daily basis, the men and the women. So that really took me back to the fundamentals. I mean, from scratch, passing the ball, staying in the stance, communication, all those things were important. But the biggest difference in the NBA, I think the biggest myth, Tom, is the fact that people think that the NBA is not about fundamentals. But the rookies, we take them through the fundamentals. I'm a big believer now in the fundamentals as far as making a chest pass, one-hand bounce pass. I work with my development coaches and make sure that they implement those on a daily basis. And that's one thing that was a myth for me in working with George Karl in Seattle, was working with the fundamentals. And that's so important, especially for rookies coming in the league, because believe it or not, there's so many fundamentals that high school coaches start, but once guys get seniors and get ready to go to college or whatever, they pull, kind of lose the reins a little bit. Too many AAU coaches are involved. But with that said, they go straight to the NBA and miss a lot of the fundamentals that or need to continue to hone those fundamentals once they come into the NBA.
During this unbelievable pandemic, COVID-19 thing, what are you doing with your staff, your players? How are you communicating? What can you do via Zoom or whatever you're using? What do you do?
We do exactly this with our players, with our coaches. I put our coaches out to talk to other coaches, whether it's high school, college, to get new ideas, Tom, to continue to learn. I'm a big believer in improving and learning and reading, taking new ideas and seeing if it fits with our organization, with our team. Our coaching staff, we have probably a 2-hour meeting 3 times a week to go over different things that we can do better, what we didn't do, go through a few practice sessions, how we want to implement things in our practices. So it's continuation. I've met with a couple of college teams and a few college teams and college coaches on Zoom, just kind of knocking around ideas of what we're doing, what we're trying, and what they're doing. So I'm a big thief, just like a lot of people, Tom. I take a lot of things and watch a lot of videos from championship productions.
Well, if you ever want anything, it's done. You just have to text me.
I tell you what, but we all are thieves, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. And the best thing we can do as coaches is to continue to learn, because when you stop learning, it's probably when it's about time to hang it up.
Talk to me about your staff and what responsibilities, how you break things up, X and O's, staff responsibility, skill development. Just talk to me about your staff and share that.
That's a good question. One thing that I do, I believe in collaboration. I give my assistant coaches, my development coaches in the meetings, everybody has a voice. Everybody has a voice. Because the days in the NBA of one coach speaking the entire practice, film session, shoot around, or whatever it is, those days are over, Tom. And so what I do, I divide my offense up and my defense up between 2 coaches. Sean Sweeney does the defense, and Michael Noride does the offense. Sidney Lowe, who was at North Carolina State University, college coach, everybody knows him. He is kind of the overseer with me of everything. He works with the player development. He oversees, kind of looks into the defense, into the offense. So he's my right-hand guy. But with those coaches, we'll meet, we'll go over what we want to cover in practice, offense and defense. They bring the ideas, what they feel, and then together we'll put together the practice plan or the game plan. But I give those guys a lot of responsibility. And what I learned that from Rick Carlisle when I was at Dallas. When I was there, I was in charge of the defense. Terry Stotts was in charge of the offense there. And Rick gave us a lot of rope as far as what we wanted to do, ideas, whether it was zone defensively, switching, or whatever it was. And that's why I came up with that plan. I did it in Toronto. I did not do it in Minnesota, and I regret it. But after I worked with Rick in Dallas, I did it in Toronto, and now I'm doing it here in Detroit.
Coach, let's talk about scouting. So, what's for you as the head coach? What do you want to know? And then what do you want to give the players to know?
Well, and it's a fine line, Tom. We do a lot of scouting through video. Brent Haskins is our advanced scout. He goes around to every NBA game, 4 games out, 3 games out, and sees each team a couple of times before we play them. So he'll go out and send back the information. We'll condense that into about a 2 or 3 or 4 page report. We'll know what they do offensively. We know what their transition offense is, their pick and roll, all the pick and roll calls, mid pick and roll, side pick and rolls, step up pick and rolls. We'll know all the calls and what they try to do offensively. We'll know what they do defensively through his information he sends back. But again, and then we'll put analytics to it. What is their points per possession with their pick and roll, side pick and rolls? What is their points per possession with the mid-screen rolls? So we'll condense that. But unless there's a major number that sticks out to us, Tom, we don't give all the information to the players. We'll give them what pertains to their position. Say, for instance, they're a big-time post-up team. we'll give them the points per possession on the left block, or what they do on the right block. Or if they have a guy that loves left shoulder, we'll give them that information to a player. Also, we'll break down that one player and we'll give him 2 or 3 or 4 video clips of that player's favorite moves. Does he like going to his right? Does he like going to his left? And we do that. And now we can even do that by sending them clips on their cell phones. And I know with high school and college, we didn't have that at Kentucky, or a lot of schools don't have that. But if you do have access to video equipment, that 1 or 2 clips of a player's favorite move that you can give to your players or whatever, we try to do that on a nightly basis.
Stats, halftime of the game. They hand you the piece of paper, analytics. What are the first couple things you look at?
One thing I look at is our transition defense. Are we getting back? Because that is one detail, one phase of the game that determines how hard you're playing. You know, and I would say this year in Detroit, we did not do that well. Last year we did. For whatever reason, we turned it over. We did not get back in transition, and that was a no-no. That's the first thing I look at. How many fast break points are we giving up? Because that really gives you kind of an inclination whether you're playing hard. Because a lot of nights those shots may not fall. You may not things just may not be clicking. But you better get your butt back in transition. Defensive field goal percentage, whether it's from the 2s or 3s, how many paint points they have. I look at those things very, very quickly. Offensively, are we turning the ball over? Are we taking care of the ball? Because that really tells me, you know, whether we're really concentrating and focused or just willy-nilly throwing the ball around and giving it away. So turnovers, what are we holding them to from a defensive field goal percentage standpoint? What are they shooting from the 3? Offensively, what are we shooting? Are we getting the type of shots we want? Offensively, I want to get to the rim first, get to the free throw line after that, corner 3s, and then arc 3s or top of the key 3s. We want to cut down on our non-paint 2s. That's our last area of shots that we want to emphasize are the non-paint 2s. So we kind of go through that. Each coach will go through their phase of the game. If something really sticks out to me other than those non-negotiables, they'll bring it back to me and we'll go over with the team at halftime.
So, Coach, after the game's over, is there a different thing you look at or analytically from standpoint of getting ready? Because you're playing in 1 or 2 days.
Yes, that's important. So one thing we want to do defensively, are we controlling the paint? How many paint points they get, which normally tells you that either they're dribble driving your defense, or they getting too many easy buckets. But did we give up a lot of paint points? Or did we give up a number of corner 3s, which we don't want to do? So I look at those. What's the points per possession we gave up in a mid pick and roll defense? Did we adjust our defense properly? Side pick and roll, how do we cover that? Do we cover that properly? So I look at a lot of detailed things with our schemes as much as anything else and understand, is there something that we can do better? And is it going to translate? We got to get it fixed before we get to a game in a couple of days.
You mentioned it, Coach, non-negotiables. So let's go to your offensive end of the floor. What are your non-negotiables on the offensive end of the floor?
Well, again, it goes back to turnovers. I think that's one thing as a coach. If I was a high school coach or a college coach, that is the one thing offensively that you want to keep down. We try to keep down 12, 13 turnovers per game. And we did not do a good job with that this year. Last year we did. This year without Blake Griffin, who was probably our quasi four-man point guard, took care of the basketball. Ish Smith. This year we had a kind of developing a point guard in Bruce Brown. So our turnover rate went up. Subsequently, our transition rate went back. But the one non-negotiable is taking care of the ball offensively. And then once we look at videos, Tom, how many one more passing opportunities we have? I had a good shot, but did my teammate have a great shot? Did I move the basketball one more pass? So getting that next pass mentality, is something I look at. Did we attack the paint? That's another one. Did we get into the paint, attack the paint, collapse the defense, and then get the kickouts. Because those long paint twos, those high paint twos around the free throw line, I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years, once I really started implementing analytics in the offensive and defensive game, you can't make enough of those to win. Probably Milwaukee Bucks in the NBA are probably the most analytical team in our league. But it's driven by me through our offense as much as anything else. Are we getting the kind of shots we want to take and be disciplined with our shot spectrum?
I got about a five-pronged question for you. All right, you ready?
Okay.
So discipline, accountability, culture, communication. How does that all in the pro game? How does that all work? And then keeping them accountable for, how they do, what they do, and all that.
See, that's a big misnomer. Also, you asked me a question earlier, Tom, about how the NBA differed from the college game. Well, the number one thing with any team is your culture, is your discipline. And the misnomer about NBA players is that they don't want discipline. The first person to come back and tell me that something's not quite right is Blake Griffin right now. In Minnesota, it was Kevin Garnett. Your star players, they want discipline around them. They want to be disciplined. Now, the difference in the NBA and the college game in high school is how you administer that discipline. The days of just going right upside their head in front of the team, embarrassing your star player. First of all, you got to have a relationship with your star player and all your players to be able to tell them, no, you screwed up over here. You didn't get back in transition, multiple times, but you got to have that relationship to administer that discipline. Being on time. I'm a big believer on being on time because not only are you disrespecting the team, but you disrespecting 12, 13 other players in this locker room by being late. And we fine players for being late. It goes up by the minute. So we want to make sure we keep that culture, that discipline. I have another rule in practice that's old school. I got this from Rick Carlisle, also at Kentucky when Coach Hall coached there. Every player that practices has to have their shirt tail tucked in. That's a little thing, but it's a big thing. One thing I learned when I first became a head coach, when you put those little detailed rules and regulations in, you can tell as you walk out in practice what player is probably going to have a good day or a bad day, because they know when they walk out that they're supposed to have their shirt tails tucked in and the shoes tied. And that tells you right there, if a guy walks out accidentally with his shirt tail out, he's probably upset with me because he didn't get enough playing time or whatever, or he's not locked in and focused. So those little detail-oriented disciplines, even on the NBA level, are very, very important for me, and your culture. We try to look at players that fit your culture because that's something that's very, very important, because if you don't get guys that are tied in, that are disciplined, somewhere down the road in a close game, in an adverse situation, you're going to lose that game because, one, the lack of discipline, the lack of culture, or the lack of respect between each other. And for the NBA, that's something I try to working to do on a daily basis.
Troy's got some questions for you. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, to kind of follow up that last question is regarding like young players. Right now there's one and done. Eventually it's probably going to get to the point where you're just high schoolers coming straight in. What challenges do those young guys have coming into the locker room with the veterans and family men and, just being older and being more experienced? What kind of challenges do they face?
Troy, it's a huge challenge, and it's an issue that's coming into the NBA from a coaching standpoint. For myself, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm not speaking for the NBA, the one thing I wish and I would hope that most players stayed in college. Because, again, I love developing, I love teaching, my staff enjoys it, but the players learn so much by going to college, getting that discipline and teaching, getting the education in college. There's probably, and you never want to take that away, because there's probably 1, 2, or 3 outliers every year that may be ready for the NBA. But most of the guys that declare for our league, they think they're ready and they're not ready. And you just said it, Troy. You're dealing with men. You're dealing with men with responsibilities, with families, with children. And if you think you're coming in willy-nilly and you're going to take their job, their minutes, they're not going to make it easy for you. So one, they want you to be disciplined. They want you to be, ready to be taught the fundamentals. And they don't want to come in a game and you don't know how to pivot and step through a defense and get off a good pass, continue to come down and turn over. So the veteran players are just as hard on young players as the coaches. So that's why, for me, I would love for players to stay in school, wherever it is, and get the fundamentals. And again, there's probably a Sean Kemp, there's a LeBron James, and bless his soul, a Kobe Bryant once every so often. But if you look at it, it takes those players 1, 2, or 3 years to get ready to come in and help you win at our level. And it's no one's fault. It's not the player's fault. It's not the high school coach's fault. It's not the college coach's fault. It's maturity. There's so many things to learn, dealing with travel, dealing with money, dealing with the game of basketball, the physicality part of it. You're dealing with men versus, some guys you're probably stronger than in high school and college. So there's so many things you have to learn coming in. So the first year is a year of maturity, growing, learning the NBA, learning the culture, learning the nuances of the NBA game. And it's so much that you can't force feed it that first couple of years.
I thought that was interesting. You think that number's that low of guys that are ready to make that jump? Because a lot of good players out there, but that's a very small number.
And that's this crazy thing about it now. They come into the league, Troy, but they're not ready to step in and help you win a game. I challenge anyone to go out and see someone that come one and done, ready and to come in and help you win. Now they'll come in and play, but to win at a high level, to be ready to compete for a playoff position, is so much to learn. Now our job as coaches, I enjoy teaching, but yet and still there's so much to learn for those guys to come in to make an impact. But again, that's kind of the hand we're dealt now in the NBA. I think you're going to see more of it, but that doesn't mean those guys are ready to come in and change the world in the NBA.
Yeah, that was the one thing. I can't remember which coach it was that said it. He said, "I wish more guys had their goals instead of being their goal to make it to the NBA, to be ready and stick in the NBA and be successful."
Troy, that's a big part. And Blake Griffin told me something last summer when I went out to visit with him. The one thing that helped him be a better player to get ready for the NBA, he loved the grind. He loved the grind of the NBA. And for any coach, any young player, if you have players that love to work, love the grind, because it's a grind. The guys who want to fight through adversity, because it's a daily grind to work to get better, to work on your three-point shooting, to work on your body. And if you don't enjoy that, because a lot of guys come into the NBA, they love to go from high school to college. They love the college life, they love the NBA life, but they don't want to pay the price to get there. And you've got something special when you got a player who enjoys that and has the talent to go along with that. And that you've got something special.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks,
Coach,
Tom.
Coach, your topic is defense, team defense. But my question, what's the non-negotiables for your defensive side?
Well, one is, and I said at the beginning, is transition, getting back. The number one thing, if you turn it over, make or miss now in the NBA, the pace is something that everybody is trying to get into. And again, I'm saying this year, we're a young team after the trades. We didn't do a good job of getting back, but I'm teaching on the release. A lot of teams do it a different way. Some teams send one guy to the offensive boards. Some send two. For us, I want everybody to get back. I gave Andre Drummond this year a little bit more leeway of going and getting it, but everybody else has got to get your butt back on the release of the shot, get back. If you shoot the ball from the corner, the one thing that we teach is you shoot it, you go through the elbow, and then get back. And that's something that I can show you right here on the board, is if this player here shoots the ball, if you can see it, if he shoots it from the right corner, he wants to go here in transition and then get back. If he shoots it here, a lot of the statistics show those long rebounds come in that area right there. So if you go through the tee, go through the elbow, and then back, that'll take you to cover up an offensive board here. The player in this corner on that release, he's got to start getting back. He's going straight back and getting back in transition. But this guy here can go to the elbow, which is semi-following your shot, but taking you back. So number one non-negotiable on the turnover, on the release, your first 3 steps have to be a sprint to get back on transition defense.
Can you talk, before we get into team defense, can we talk just about what is a normal practice like for you guys preseason, start of the season? Like we were talking to Hubie Brown the other day, and he said, do you guys still have 2 days?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah. The NBA has changed so much, and it's made our job so much harder. That's why we make it incumbent on players to work so hard in the summertime. The days of the 2-a-days, and I used to love those days when I first came in the league, we'd have like a month full of 2-a-days. Now we probably have 3 days of training camp. You're allowed to have 1 practice that's live, and then the second practice, it cannot be live. It has to be dummy offense, shooting, skill work, and that type of thing. And the league really keeps a close eye on that, but it's gone away from that. So our work comes a lot in the summertime. Our skill work, our shooting comes in the summertime. My rule with our team is the young players 1 year to 3 years have to come back at night and get their night shooting in during the regular season, especially up until December. But our day starts with stretching. We'll come in, we stretch. And let's take it back before that. From 1 to 3 years in the NBA, we have what we call vitamin work. Guys come in before practice. We'll start practice at 11. They have to get there at 10 and start working with coaches on their individual work. And again, it's year 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, guys. And then if we have two-way players, they'll come in also. But they'll come in at 10 o'clock and start getting their shooting in. If they need to work on something with the ball handling, our developmental coaches will work on it. So they'll go through from 10 to 10:45, getting that individual work in, their vitamin work is what I call it, for that day. And that's very important for me because that's where those young players get the fundamental work, the footwork, the pivoting, stepping through, being strong with the ball, attacking the rim, attacking the paint, whether it's defensive slides, post defense, any fundamental that we see those have, but we'll work on that for 45 minutes with our young players. After that, I'll bring all the guys into the circle. We'll talk about whatever issues we had last night in the last night's game. We'll talk about that. And then we'll go out and stretch. I'll put the music on. Again, that's something I got from Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks. I stole it from him. He has music going. And if you think about it, it kind of gets guys juiced up and going. I know if you have a boom box on the side, there's nothing wrong with that. I know when I played at Kentucky, we couldn't say a word when we got loose. That was just kind of the time. But in today's basketball, young players kind of get going with music. So we'll stretch to music. Guys will get loose. We'll put 10 minutes on the clock and go through our stretching. We'll start practice with our ball handling, 5-man weave, zip passes. I'm a big believer in zip passes, fundamental passes. I stay away from one-hand passes. And if we don't complete it the way we need to complete it, we do it again. Miss layups, we'll do it again. Then we'll graduate to the 5-man weave down, 3-on-2 back. And that kind of gets guys going, moving the basketball, attacking the paint, and we'll get into our fundamentals with passing and finishing at the rim that way. But and then we'll go through our defensive work. We'll go through our shell work. Even before we get to that, we have what we call our closeout drill. We'll put the players, if you can see this, on the baseline, and we'll put coaches out here at our X's. On all of our courts, we'll have X's at this spot, that spot, the spot here in the corners. 1 for offensive spacing, and also 2 in transition defense, we want to run to the X's. But on a defensive work, each coach has a ball here in these closeout. The 4 players will run up to the elbows here. The next 2 players will run to lower boxes. So we have defensive player here, defensive player there, defensive player there, defensive player there. So they'll have their rapid fire footwork, their pitty patter footwork on the whistle. They'll go in and touch both all at the same time. They'll have to touch and then close out to the corners and to the top X's. All right. And here is where we work on our closeout work, our footwork on our closeout. We're a stickler for, we want to go out and close out here on this side of the floor with our left hand up and forcing the ball to the baseline. Some coaches, whatever you believe in, whatever your personnel, but we want to dictate direction and make sure on our closeouts, we want to close out here in the corners and sending the ball to baseline and dictate which way we want to go. All right. On the first one, we'll come out, we'll do the same thing, and they'll just close out and check the footwork. The next one, they'll come in, touch, close out, and then the coaches will take 1 dribble to the left, 1 dribble over here to the right, 1 dribble over here to the right, 1 dribble over to the left, and now they have to pursue, get back, and get squared up. So, but each 4 guys will come out and do the same thing. These 4, they'll go back to the back of the line. We'll get a new 4 to come in. So we'll elevate to that. But the key is here, we want to get back around in front. The coach here will shoot the basketball. We want to challenge with the left hand on this side, challenge with the right hand on the side over here. And then we call out shot, box, ball. Shot goes up, we turn and box out. We challenge, we turn and box out. And then all 4 defensive players will come back and pursue the rebound to the paint. They all have to sprint back to the paint. They box out, come back to the paint. So it's a continuous drill, but it's a closeout drill really to check the footwork of the closeouts. Over here, the left foot is up. Over here, the right foot is up on the side over here. So, but it's a continuous drill. Again, we do this almost every day working on footwork, because one thing that I found out in the NBA, most of your breakdowns happen in your closeout situations. So we make this a daily part of our warm-up on the defensive end. You have a question?
Is that a lot of your closeout stuff like premised on scouting? I mean, do you close out different on different players?
Yes. Again, the coach is here. Now, one thing, if we, once the game start, we can say, okay, shooter, non-shooter. And we may even put a red jersey on a shooter and a pink jersey on a non-shooter, or blue, or whatever the color is. We'll designate shooter, non-shooter. So again, we're in this situation here. We close out to the boxes. These guys will close out to the elbows, choppy steps, touch. If this is a non-shooter, we'll close out short. If it's a shooter, we'll close out to what we call close out to touch. All right, and we really want to get this guy off the 3-point line. So as we first put it in, we just want to make sure we get there properly with the proper footwork. And here at the top X over here, Tom, one thing you don't want to do is open up too much right here, and now you give a straight line drive to the basket. Our goal at this point right here, at this juncture right here, we want to send that guy to jail. We want to send him to jail here at the corner X here. Here we want to dictate, make sure that guy doesn't get a blow by. We want to send him to help there. Here we want the same thing. We want to send him here to the corner. So our footwork is so important on these guys, especially at this level, at this angle here, is make sure we send him to that direction instead of a straight line drive to the basket.
Got it. So, Coach, let me do this. I'm going to turn you loose on defense for a little bit.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people are asking questions about, maybe you want to start on it. Do you have a couple of rebounding drills? And then go from that to team defense? And I know I got another one is, you were at Dallas with the Mavericks,
Right, right,
at the Toronto, and it also now you still run a little zone once in a while.
right.
If you could talk about that, and
Okay.
then I'll come back and I'll monitor
Okay.
the questions,
Okay,
and
great.
then so you got a little time here,
Okay.
rebounding, man-to-man zone, and I'll come back.
All right. One thing that we do, we out of this same drill here, we'll work on our rebounding in this situation here. But what we want to do, we want guys to make sure if they're on the move, all right, we want to make sure they sight check. All right, the shot goes up, we'll put a coach here. They'll sight check, they'll shoot the shot, and then we'll send them here and to go to the box out situation. All right. And then we'll even get these coaches to move, have movement over here on the weak side. Now on the shot, these coaches have to go and find their guy to go box out. So again, where the players are not stationary, you have to sight check and catch him on the move. If he's not coming, we want to sight check to make sure and then come back to rebound. If he's coming, we want to go and hit first. We want to step through. If he's going from on the right side of the floor, we want to go here and step through with our right foot and get our butts into their legs, into their knees, and make sure we dictate direction.
Coach, can you do one thing for me?
All right.
Just turn the board. Perfect. That's perfect. I'll leave you alone.
Okay, all right. And make sure that we sight check and make contact. One thing that I think is very important in rebounding and boxing out is your players maintaining the contact. If he's coming here, going and meeting him before he gets into the paint. If he gets into the paint before you make contact, game over. There's no way you're going to keep a big, aggressive offensive rebounder. But so we're telling our guys is on the shot, on the release, go meet him before he hits the paint and make sure he gets it here. And then again, if he tries to go here, we slide here to the baseline side or we'll slide up. But our footwork, maintaining contact, and then at the end of the day, go get it. Go get the ball. Go snap it in with two hands. Don't try to dribble it up. Go snap it in with two hands while it's in the paint. Another rebounding drill that we take a lot of pride in, and one thing that I'll do in this situation, if we give up a rebound on a free throw situation, I will find the five guys that are on the floor. That's one non-negotiable you're talking about of giving up an offensive rebound. In this situation here, if we can't go get this ball in a situation like that, we make sure these two guys squeeze. We make sure if this is the monster, we always want to make sure we put two defenders at the free throw line on the side of the monster, and we want to go and crush. We want two guys go and crush. We want our best rebound in this situation here, go and crush. And then we'll send, in this situation here, we'll also send a guy in here to go to help out if we're in a late game situation, to go to the body and find here. Over here, we'll send him to go get the shooter. And so again, we want to make sure we come up with the rebound here, and we spend a lot of time on free throw rebounding situations there, especially late game. That's one non-negotiable that there's no reason why in a dead ball situation you give up a free throw rebound. So rebounding in our league is so important. It's hit first mentality. Again, the floor is so spaced now in the NBA game that it's unrealistic to tell the guy to go all the way out to the corner. So we spend a lot of time in making sure we sight check, make sure you're getting the problem coming in. You may go here, but again, sight checking and making sure when they do go, and also too, they're going to send somebody back. If this guy's a monster and here, we spend time on what we call sandwich rebounding. We'll send this guy, we'll get a guy in front of him to get, if this guy's a great rebounder, we'll go and get in this guy's back and sandwich him and make contact in the back. And so we'll put two guys on one of their great rebounding. So we'll do a sandwich rebounding drill. We'll set it up something like this. All right. We'll have a player here, a player starting out in the basket, another, maybe a guard here, and another rebounder here in this situation here. All right. So the coach will be here. He'll put the shot up. The coach will shoot the shot. This guy will come and get it. This guy will come into the back and what we call sandwich rebound and make sure the contact, same thing over here. We'll sandwich rebounding here. These two players have to get back in transition. And now once we secure the ball, the X's secure the ball, we'll take off in a 4-on-4 transition drill. But again, the key to this drill and the theme of this drill is to make sure we come in and get contact with this rebounder here, with this offensive rebounder. It's a 2-on-1 situation, sandwich him, get the rebound and go. So we'll spend some time on that. But rebounding is a huge thing. If you're giving up a lot of offensive rebounds, you're not going to be a very successful team. But
Coach, can I ask you a couple questions while we're transitioning into defense?
Yes.
Breaking down film, do you go over as a staff the night after the game, or like the night of the game, or give the night off and the next day you go through the opponent's game?
Well, we do it right after the game. We'll go out individually. We all get it downloaded on our computer. I'll go home probably until 2 o'clock in the morning watching the whole game. Our defensive coach will take the defense. He'll break it down. They'll send me the clips he feels like's important. Our offensive coach will break it down. He'll send me clips what he feels like is important. I'll go through those. If I have some extra clips from what I've seen on both ends of the floor, I'll put it into the clips that we're going to show the team the next day. We'll break it down transition defense, half court defense. We'll break it down in different segments. Mid pick and roll defense, side pick and roll defense, all the different facets of the game. We'll show probably 2 or 3 clips of each area that we felt like we do some positive things too. So we'll show some positive clips and some negative clips. I'm a big believer in showing as many positive things, as many things we did right as many things as we did wrong. I think it's very important because especially in our league, if you go in every day with all the negatives, you'll lose the guys. So we do, as many positive things and many good things as we do negatives.
You talked about when you're doing the rebounding drill, in the one on the ball side going to the elbow and then back, and then the other one going straight back down the court.
Yep.
Jay, why sending opposite wing back, direct back? Because
again, everybody in our league now is talking about pace. If this guy went in and this guy went in, I guarantee you they're looking for those outlet passes way up here. So again, we want to get as many back, get as many below the ball as we possibly can. And so we allow this guy to go here because all the datas and all the cameras, each arena has cameras, so it shows us if this guy shoots a missed corner, a lot of those long rebounds are going to come in this area in here. So we'll send him here and then back. The guy under the basket, if we're spaced out outside the three-point line, automatically back. Outside the three-point line here, automatically back. Our 5-man, who we probably will have 4 out and 1 in, he'll either get to the opposite side for rebounding position, and then he's getting back. So I want all of my guys to get back to give ourselves a chance to get back in transition. And the worst this guy can do is this offensive rebound, the outlet pass come to this guy here. He goes back and make a stab and then try to get back. No, we want to sprint back to half court and get all of our guys back. San Antonio does I stole that from San Antonio, is not sending anyone to the offensive boards to get back and give our defense a chance.
Coach, how much percentage of film is team and how much is individual shown?
That's a great question. I would say, Tom, a lot of our individual stuff is done, I would say probably 40% team and 60% individual. And one thing that we'll do is if there's something that a guy is really having a hard time with, whether execution of offensive plays, execution of our defensive schemes, we'll sit down and spend more time with him. But from a team standpoint, we probably have 35 to 40 minutes in the film room. And then after that, you're probably going to lose the team. So we spend probably 35 to 40 minutes as a team, and then we'll indulge, especially young players, as many clips, as many situations as possible as individual. Each coach has a player that he'll take to the side one-on-one. He can really get on him. He can really hone in, be as much negative. A guy will let you talk to him as bad as you want to on the side one-on-one. And so we spend probably 60% of our time, whether it's after shooting, individual work, after weight training, with a player in a one-on-one setting.
This is a little bit off the X's and O's, but
Yeah.
What advice would you give to a coach that is new? And then also, Coach, I want to ask you, a coach of color, what advice do you give a coach of color to get into the profession of coaching and move up the ladder of professional coaching? And those two things.
Right. What was the first question again, Tom?
Just first-year coach,
Right.
trying to get that first job.
Right. Well, first of all, I would say with your team, with whoever you work with, somebody's got to see you work. I think that's the most important thing. Every coach I've ever hired, I've observed them from afar. I've observed whether high school team, college team. And again, for me in the NBA, I don't discriminate whether it's a high school coach, college coach. If I see someone who has a passion for the game, who has a love for the game, who can be innovative, who can work with players, motivate young players, it gets your attention. And I think that's the number one thing. Someone has to see you work. It may be in a high school setting. It may be in a college setting. Someone seeing you work and do the job of working with players. I think one way to get a foot in the door in the NBA today, if you're not already established, is to develop players, whether it's a college player, high school player, and an NBA coach, NBA scout, somebody watching you work, and then having a track record. Say, for instance, having a player that you developed in high school, go to college, and you see that guy progress. Well, somebody started that kid. So working fundamentally with a player is the best way to go. Whether it's of color, gender, it doesn't matter. I think the days of inequality are over, especially in the NBA. If someone can see you work and getting the job done.
What is the biggest confidence booster? Like, I'm assuming you have some players that their confidence gets a little down, but how can you help their confidence? How do you give that player any way that boosts specific players' confidence?
Well, one is, and I mentioned it earlier, is through video. In that team meeting, when that young player does something good, we blow them up. We make sure that they get all the praise, as much praise as they do the negative, because you got to understand they're coming in there shaking, not really knowing what's going on. So when they do something good, we really emphasize the positive and really accentuate the positive with that player in that film session in front of the team. Now, we may tear him up and get on him pretty hard away from that video session, but I think the more you can really accentuate the positives with a young player, whether it's in video or in practice, that really gives that guy the confidence. And for me, from a shooting standpoint, when I see a player staying after practice, coming back at night, we chart the night shooting. When I see those numbers going good, I really give them a pat on the back. I stay after practice, watch a kid work after practice. And again, just letting them know, hey, I love the way you're working. I'll go visit players in the summertime, really accentuate and pat them on the back when they're working hard. But again, as much as you can give those guys confidence and really accentuate the positive in front of the team, that's so important, more so than every time. Johnny, what are you doing? That way, that's a quick way of a young player in our league of losing his confidence.
Coach, it's I don't know how long you want to go. We can be here all day. If you want to go a little bit more on defense,
Right. We can do that.
okay. I'll be quiet. I'll let you be, and then let's do this. You do the man stuff as long as you want to go.
Okay.
We'll ask you some questions, and then we'll close it down. Okay.
Okay. Great.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, no problem. One thing that we don't try to do, we do. One is get back in transition. The other is your half court philosophy. And one thing that I learned a long time ago as a coach, fundamentally, and people say, well, in the NBA, no, it doesn't matter what level, is getting your players in a stance, and athletic stance. That doesn't mean down, the old college thing of touching the floor, getting down in an athletic stance. And one thing we take pride on, or try to take pride on, is when we watch a video, is we want to see all 5 players down in the stance once they get back in transition, what we call showing the length. Show your length. Show your length. Because when an offensive team comes down and he sees 5 guys tied together, showing their length, that's huge. That says, okay, I can't hit the paint. There's nowhere to go, covering the gaps. So one thing you want to do once you get back in transition, normally the ball may be in this area here. We have this player here. We want to be in. We don't want it. We do not help from the strong side corner. The ball is here in this situation. All right, we want somebody at the nail in that situation. So we have a player here showing his length. If the big man is weak side, we have a player in here showing his length. And this guy over here, we don't even care about. We want this player here, 1 foot in the paint, showing his length. So now when the ball handler comes right here and he's looking at the paint, he sees all these 5 guys, these 4 guys behind him, and the guy on him showing their length, covering up the driving gaps and paint. Now, again, if the ball drives here, we're going to stunt. Stunting is so important. Faking help at this guy, fake help, but he's not going to come in too far where he can't get back for the corner 3 in the strong side corner. Our big man here, we want him to come and help outside the paint. We want to come across all the way across the paint and meet him outside the paint. If he gets here to the rim, we want to go vertical. It means meeting the guy if he's in the restricted area, going straight up, giving up your body for the layup and going here. The guy here, weak side, he's going in, cracking down, and getting into the knees of the weak side guy. This guy here, he's dropping for a moment. He'll have 2. He'll have the guy here in the corner, and the guy at the top. But again, the guy on the ball, he's got to understand his stance. We want to dictate direction. We want to force the ball down into the corner here. We don't want to give a straight line drive to the basket. But all these guys have to be in sync. All these guys have to be in stance, talking, all right, having an act. This guy faking, stunting is an act. I think you got to be together with your stunts. I think you want to fake help more than you give help. I think that's very, very important, because if you come in here and give up a corner 3, this is a shot we do not want to give up. This is a shot here in the corner we don't want to give up. We want to give up this tough tough non-paint 2 here. This high, anything in this area here, we will live with a challenge shot, stick hand up in that situation. So again, stance, getting in the stance where the ball is coming back, looking at a covered lane. We want to protect the paint. We want to do whatever we have to do to protect this area right here. Okay, if you're going to score in this area here, all right, we'll live with that. We'll live with that in this area here, even above the first hash mark here. We'll live with that, because all of our analytics are showing us that there's not enough. You can't make enough of those high paint 2s and long 2s to beat us as a defensive team. But on the ball, how close I can get? I know a lot of coaches will get in a situation here where get up into this guy. In our league, we want to understand who this is. And as scouting reports would tell us, how close we can get him into this guy. Arm's length, how fast you are, how fast I am. All right, but again, our job is to send him to this corner here in the corner.
Coach, do you always stunt the corners?
Yes, stunting is huge. Again, we rather fake help more than give help out of the corners. We do not want to leave this strong side corner here. That's a non-negotiable right there. I know in Toronto, I know they're a team that helps off the strong corner, and I think that's kind of something. If you have a non-shooter here in a game plan in a playoff situation, we may send a guy in there to help off the strong corner. But throughout the regular season, we stunt and get back. We in here showing our length right here, but getting back to the strong side corner and not giving up that corner 3 shot.
Coach, do you want to talk anything about just different coverages, how you defend the pick and roll?
Yes, I sure will. One thing that we want to do is in a pick and roll situation, we want to send, if this big man, if the 5-man is coming up to set the screen, all right, and the ball handler's here with the basketball, we want to send the ball away from his strong hand, all right? And again, scouting reports would tell us that our communication is weak. As soon as the 5-man takes one step towards setting a screen, our defensive 5-man or whoever the defender is, he has to call out 3 times. Weak, weak, weak. And so now this guy here on the basketball, he may not even be into the ball, but on that command, we call it, he has to impact the ball and dictate that he sends the basketball to his weak hand. Now, my job as a big man is I've got to be ball, you, rim in that situation. The worst thing the defender on the basketball can do is allow the ball to reject, and now my big man is on this side of the basketball. So I've got to be ball, you, rim. All right, I've got to be one step below the guy setting the screen. You see a lot of teams with the big guy back in here, and that's okay, depending on who your big guy is. But in our philosophy, we want this guy to be one step below the screener where he can give this guy a caution line. It's very important, the defender on the pick and roll on the ball, he has to pursue. If he gets hit, don't die on the screen. You cannot die on the screen. Get behind the guy, pursue. Again, where is our shot that we want to live with? We want to make sure we give up this shot with a challenge, what we call a rear view challenge. A guy coming from behind, challenge it with his inside hand. So if the ball's coming this way, the defender's pursuing this way, he wants to challenge with his left hand and use his voice. Yell, scream without fouling, and really yell at this guy and challenge a shot. This guy here, he's there, ball you rim. His guy takes off. We hear from the weak side. We have these 2 guys in here tagging, all right, to help this guy. But again, my job as a big man is I don't let a roller get behind me. I'm deterring the ball. Again, here in the corner, I'm in here stunting. Again, not leaving the strong side corner, but I'm dictating direction. I'm sending the ball to the screen in the mid-screen and roll. But we want to send all pick and rolls to the guy's weak hand in the middle of the row. Now, late game situation, we'll switch that. All right, we'll switch. We'll take our guard. We'll take the big.
Coach, you want to hold up the board a little higher? Just a little bit.
Okay,
There's perfect.
Right, okay.
Perfect.
All right. So late game situation. All right. If you can see this, the 5-man will come up, set the screen. We will switch that. X1 will switch. We'll take the guy here. And again, if it's a late game situation, we'll have our bigs come across the 3-point line and guard here. The 5-man is probably going to roll down to the basket. So what we'll do, we'll have the biggest of the 2 guys over here on the weak side. I call this, we'll Dallas out. We'll switch out the roll man. So the biggest guy will take him, and this point guard will go out here to guard the guy in the corner. So late game situation, we will switch that. and then we Dallas out on the backside. So the one thing we don't want to go do is give up a three. If this guy blows by our big man going to the basket, we'll live with that with a challenge shot against our big guy going, or again, a non-paint two here with a challenge hand. What we don't want to do is get in rotation and give up a three late game.
Coach, I got a scenario for you.
Okay?
And then we'll see if – I don't think I have any questions, see if Troy's got any. But here's my scenario. You just hit a three. You're up three now. There's 5 seconds or 4 seconds. I'll say 4 seconds to go, right?
Right.
I did the same thing with Popovich. He corrected me. He said, you're talking about college. So they advanced the ball to the front court, right?
Right.
So let's say there's 4 seconds left. Their ball, you're up three. What do? You foul or not?
Definitely, no question. And no question. There's so many analytical scenarios. Is one, what we teach, anybody that's coming for the ball here, we go through the body. But you have to wait till this guy releases the ball before the defender here, we say go through his body, go for the basketball, but you make daggone sure you go through his body as the ball is in the air. We'd rather make them shoot the free throws. And again, I'll send in our best rebounders, and that's where our work with our box out drill comes into play. But anything from 8 seconds down, we're up three, we're going to make it a free throw game and have confidence in our free throws, confidence in our rebounding, because how many games have you seen, and all the analytics point to it, the ball goes in here, this guy turns around, no pressure. If we lose it, we lose it. So that, for a guy as a shooter, that's a shot that guys in our league, now you go to overtime and, you're fighting an uphill battle. But we're going to take our chances on him going to the free throw line, making one and try to miss the second one and go to our box out and our rebounding.
Coach, you just gave me a deja vu. I'm in high school or junior high. Reggie Warford is at the Iowa State basketball camp.
Yes.
And we're going through box out drills, sticking your elbow in the rib. And then I just had deja vu all over.
I tell you what, I don't know, in whatever league it is, high school, they will let you commit murder right here. They'll let you go to the knees, elbow, especially if it's a small point guard here or a smaller player, and this is a big guy. You can go in and annihilate that guy right there before they get in. Now, back in the day, Coach Sutton would have different plays. We'd have different offensive plays. We will say cross. We'll have the smaller, faster guy. He would cross first, and this big guy would cross second right there. But again, you got to get in this guy's legs before he takes off to go across the play. Or Coach Sutton would do this. He would have this guy to go behind and this guy here to go behind, and this guy here go straight down the middle for the tip in. So we'd have 1 and 2 set plays. But again, I don't care if it's 1, 2. These guys right here, it's a sumo wrestling right there to go in and get these guys, go in, take the shooter's guys' legs out, because again, we foul up 3, and we're going to do it every time. Now, sometimes you'll have players, you don't want to do this. You don't want him to commit this foul while the ball is still, in the inbounder's hand. That's a cardinal sin.
All right, I got one more, and I'm going to turn it over to Troy, okay?
Okay. All right.
Your best player picks up a foul, then late in the first quarter, he gets the second. How long do you sit him in the half?
Depends on who he is. If it's Blake Griffin, I know he's smart enough to play with 2 fouls. Some players, you 2 fouls, boom, you're coming over sitting by me. But I think it depends on who it is. Again, in our league, high IQ players, if it was Kyle Lowry, Blake Griffin, Kevin Garnett, let them go. Again, 6 fouls, those are things. And then now, in another question we'll have is, if it's Blake Griffin, he gets a second foul and it's questionable foul. All right, now I will use that challenge to keep him, to see if we can challenge it if it's a questionable situation, to keep him from getting that second foul. But if it's a smart player, Tom, I'm going to leave him in there and let him go. Let him play.
Troy, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, thanks for doing this today. It's been great on behalf of the board of directors and the staff and all the members that have tuned in today. It's really good. I have a question that maybe you can just uniquely answer. You've been an NCAA champion as a player.
Yep.
And an NBA champion as a assistant coach.
Yep.
How are they different?
Well, I tell you what, in the NBA, it's more relief as anything else because it's such a long season. You play 100-plus games to get to the NBA championship game. So every night, like I was telling Tom, it's a grind. So every night throughout the playoffs, that series, you go to the next one, you stay up all night, trying to get ready. You have one day between games to prepare for the next one. Where in college, as a player, it's fun. I mean, you have, 2 games, then you have days off to try to prepare for that next round, Elite 8, Sweet 16, whatever it is, you're trying to get to that next. So you have a little bit more time to breathe, to inhale, exhale, and prepare. Where in the NBA, it's a grind. So there was more joy, I would say, in college basketball, winning the championship. Again, I wasn't in Coach Hall's seat when we won the championship. I'm sure he wasn't having joy, but it was more fun, so to speak, in the two. Both of them are tough. Both of them are hard to get to that final game, as whether Sweet 16 in high school, to get to the high school state championship. But again, there's different levels of relief, joy, and the grind in both of them.
Great. Thanks again, Coach. Appreciate it.
Coach, thanks for everything. I'm just going to say Coach, thanks for taking the time. You've been a friend, and thanks for everything.
Right.
I'm glad Coach Hamilton introduced us. Next Monday, we got Bill Cartwright.
Oh, my goodness.
He's going to speak on Monday at 10 a.m. George Barber, who's a system guy, William Brown at Albany, is going to talk offense. Larry Brown's going to be on Wednesday. And Bill Beeline, who's a nephew of John Beeline, a junior college coach, is going to go through all the two-guard offense.
That's
Thursday,
good.
We got Bob Hurley and Dick Bennett. And then Friday, we got Bill Self.
You got some great coaches, Coach. I'll tell you what, I'm definitely going to zoom in and John Beeline is one of the best there is, and his nephew, I'm sure, picked up a lot of things from him. John is a great coach. Did a great job at Michigan. Went into a tough situation at Cleveland, but he's an excellent coach. And Bill Cartwright, I coached Bill in Seattle. I was an assistant coach.
You got any stories?
I learned probably as much pick and roll defense, Pat Riley's defense, from him as anybody. And as a coach, you steal as much from your players at this level as you do anybody else. So all the nuances of Pat Riley's pick and roll defense, I learned.
I'm writing that down, Coach.
Yes, do that. Make sure he covers some of that.
We thought with the Last Dance series going on with ESPN that maybe some of these younger coaches weren't familiar with the triangle.
Unbelievable. I tell you what, one of the most intricate offenses. One thing that you talked about the zone, Tom. One thing that helped us against the triangle, because you couldn't stop it man to man. The only thing you could do is slow it down. We played a lot of zone when I was in Dallas against the Lakers. We swept them in that series when we won the championship. We played a lot of zone because a lot of those principles, the defensive zone slides, those cuts came to you. So you didn't have to bump as much. You didn't have to trade off as much. It automatically, I don't know if it's physics, trigonometry, whatever, but it was easier to guard the zone. I mean, the triangle in a zone that definitely is a man-to-man. And Coach Jackson was stubborn. He didn't get away from his triangle because he had so much success with it. But we didn't stop it, but we slowed it down a little bit by playing the zone and had the trade-offs and had it down to, as much as we could against the triangle.
Thanks again, Coach, for everything.
Thank you,
You've been good job. Thanks for everything. Stay safe, all right?
Okay, you too, Tom. Thanks, Troy.
Have
luck
a
to
great
you.
night. Get some rest.
Okay, I will. See you guys later.
See you, man.
Okay.
Troy, great job.
Thank you, Troy.
Talk to you
Thanks,
later.
Tom.
Thanks,
Have a
Coach.
good weekend.
Okay.
You. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.